sometimes and I don't feel that passionately for her, but I don't love her less. And I choose to love her, and I end up just loving her so much. It's the feeling. Are we supposed to passionately feel in love all the time for us to be born again?
Really good question. So really what I said at the beginning was the mark of being born again is this thirst for God. So in other words, and that thirst ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's intense and sometimes it's not. David talked in different ways. Okay, so sometimes he was like Psalm 63 is a psalm where he's earnest in his in fervent in his love, and sometimes he says things like where are you? Where are you? Will you reject me forever? So he's feeling a range of emotions. That's why I'm so grateful for the Psalms, because there is a range of emotions in the life of a believer. And so no. You don't have to always have a burning passion, feeling at kind of the peak level for God in order to be born again. There is, though, a thirst. And the thirst is what keeps driving you to Him, no matter what climate you're living in at the time, or what season. Okay? There are seasons. There are seasons of grief. There are seasons of physical illness that affect our affections and our emotions. Normal. Sometimes you wake up and you've got to stir it up. So when you said love is like a decision, I would say, well, no. Determination is part of what love will do in order to keep pursuing the beloved. At the bottom, it's not a decision. At the bottom, it's a treasuring. Right? At the bottom, at the bottom of what you feel for your wife is not, honey, I have just decided to love you. Because I've decided. Because I've just decided. Okay? But that's not the way love works. Love, at the bottom, is you are valuable. Because if you tell your wife, I've decided to love you today, how is she going to feel?
I've decided to.
Wow, I haven't heard anything so romantic in my whole life. Right? But if you say to her, at some point, and you're just honest, and you're saying, I don't always feel the fervency towards you that I ought to feel. However, because you are a treasure to me, I am not going to let those things govern me. I am going to stir up the way I ought to feel. So at the bottom, it's treasuring. And it's the same thing with God. At the bottom, you're not just deciding. You haven't made a decision to follow Jesus. At the bottom, you decide to follow Him because you think He's worth it. That's why you decide. Okay? At the bottom, your will is going to follow what you love. All right? You don't just will and then love. You will only will what you find worthy of pursuit. That's the way it works in the human heart. Your heart, your love rules you. And that's what gives us away. You can tell over time. So when Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is like a field that a man planted, and then the enemies threw seeds into it, and so there's wheat and there are weeds growing up, and at the beginning they look the same, but as they mature they look different. They bear different fruit. Like, oh, wait a minute, that's not the same. And what is the thing that tells the wheats from the weeds? It's what over time that plant or that person is pursuing. Okay? They don't ultimately love God. They're pursuing something else. They're different. The fruit that they bear is the fruit of the Spirit. You can think about it as the kind of fruit, John 15, sort of bearing much fruit. But at the bottom, it's a treasuring. It's what you love is what drives your will. Is that helpful? Okay. So when you feel dry, when you feel low, you go, this is not how I want to remain. I am not staying here. You are worth too much for me to be like this towards you. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to pursue you.
Wonderful answer. Thank you, John. Anyone else? Thank you for that question. Awesome. Your time to all right, here we go.
Hi, John. So, my question is that earlier you mentioned something that, about love, right? So, of course, all of us are desiring something, and on the worldly sense, we're pursuing something, right? For example, be career or a person or a loved one. So, with that love for God, how do you advise us, especially men, if we're pursuing someone or something? How can we not look at it as if it's replacing our love for God?
That is one of the biggest questions that we face, the issues that we face in life, because we, as John Calvin has famously described the human heart as an idol factory. I think that's very, very helpful. The human heart is an idol factory. We can make idols out of just about everything. Very good things, very legitimate things. You can make an idol out of a wife, or your family, your kids. You can make an idol out of your career. You can make an idol out of money, obviously. You can make an idol out of fitness. You can make an idol out of, there isn't anything that we can't make an idol out of and make a God substitute. And so, how do you pursue things that are not God in a way that actually glorifies God? That's the question. And so, Paul writes in Romans 15, right, that anything that is not of faith is sin. It means we can do just about anything. That if it's not coming out of faith, that pursuit, it's sin. And so what we want is we bring everything, our human beloved, our children, our work, our ministry, our pursuit of financial health and accumulation and security. We need to ask, does God rule those things? Is he Lord over those things? Do I do this for His sake? Have I brought it to Him? Have I yielded these things to Him? And do I pursue these things for His sake? That's what it means for God. Oh God, you are my God. Because if God is not God, God will be a threat to your God. Okay? You cannot, that's what Jesus is getting at this when he's using God and money. He uses money here, but he could have used numerous things in this place. Right? You cannot serve God and money. Either you will love one and hate the other, or you will cling to one and despise the other. But that just means is you'll just, like, you might say, oh no, I love God, but you hold on to something else for your security and you neglect Him. You can't serve God and money. You can't serve God and your wife. You can serve your wife for God's sake. You can honor God by the way you love your wife. But if she's your God, then God becomes a threat. God's will for her, for you, like that might become a threat to you. And as soon as God becomes a threat, then you have an idol. And you know when He's a threat when you feel that, don't touch that. I don't want you to touch that. And every one of us experiences that. Okay? That's not unusual. If you have that, you're not weird. You're just a human being who's fallen and sinful and has sanctification work that needs to be done in you and things to yield to God. But He will not allow that to remain. He may be patient for a while because He might be doing something else in you, but He will not let that go forever. And I just say, yield it to Him. Where you feel that fear, take it to Him now. Not, hey, well, maybe in 5 years I'll bring this to you. No, no, no. Take it now and say, God, I don't know what to do about this. I can't just make this happen, but you know how to do this. And I'm afraid of even asking this, but because your steadfast love is better than life, that's what you say, I'm going to trust that. You got to do this in me. You got to do this in me. Because I don't want to be an idolater.
Thank you.
Hello, John. My question is, like, if you have a, like, if a person has a limited budget, if you will recommend 3 books, what would those be? Aside from the Bible, so 3 books.
What 3 books would I recommend?
Yes.
Not my side. Don't follow your heart. Simple.
No. And I would just say, that's a book you ought to read. The second book is also by John Piper. It's The Pleasures of God. Because that book talks about what motivates God. Right? So, if desiring God is, what does it look like for us to live the Christian life? What should be at the core? What drives us? What drives us? Well, the question is, well then what drives God? What keeps God going? The pleasures of God. It's what gives God pleasure. What gives God pleasure? Read that book. It's one of the most neglected books by John Piper, most underread books. And I will tell you, if you're willing to put the work into it, it may be the most spiritually beautiful book you will read outside of Scripture. It will be transformative to you. And a third book, wow, good grief. What do I not say? What did somebody just say? Well, Future Grace, that would be good. I mean, there's read almost anything of John Piper. Whatever you want to read there. A short one that was written a long time ago by a guy named Henry Scougal. The Life of God and the Soul of Man. That will light you on fire. A.W. Tozer's Knowledge of the Holy. A.W. Tozer's The Pursuit of God. I just, so, I'm kind of locking up because I'm like, it's like going through a buffet, like, but that would be a good start. That would be a good start. And then you can go to the Desiring God website and maybe just type in the search thing, like books recommended. And we've got some lists there. Like there's some that, like what are the top 50 books that John Piper recommends, and some others that we've put up there if you want to do that. If you really want to tackle something, what's really influenced John Piper, you can read Religious Affections by Jonathan Edwards. It's another beautiful one. He's, some people think John Piper's tough sledding, like hard to read, and if you think John's hard to read, you'll find Jonathan Edwards a bit challenging. John right now has been on a John Owen kick, so he would recommend a number of books by John Owen. He's even harder to read, but he's worth it. I mean, dig. If you want jewels, and you want gold, you don't find gold sprinkled on the surface of the earth. You got to dig for it, and so that's often true with books.
That is awesome. So before we close this Ask Pastor John segment, John Luke. Actually, I have a question. You were talking about the language, or romantic language, and the expression of David through the Psalms of his love and passion for God. Now, you as an author and writer, my question is two-part. In a sense, how did writing for yourself develop and deepen your relationship and desire for God? And 2, is it something that you recommend we all nurture? As should we write, journaling, blogging, whatever it is? Is this something that you would also recommend?
Okay, so writing. Yes, I would recommend journaling. Here's what writing does. Writing clarifies your thoughts, all right? So things tend to, for me, they coalesce into clarity for me when I write. So things that are sort of hazy out here, they're impressions. I can kind of generally explain it, but if I haven't really written on it, I will ramble more than I already do. Trying to explain what I mean. Writing makes you be precise about what you're thinking, and then as you write it, you go, well, that's not quite it. And then you write it again, and then you go, no, that's not it. And you work it until you go, yeah, that's what I mean. And in that process, it clarifies for you. And so that's the real benefit of writing. I'll tell you though, like I didn't start off writing for publication at all. That just has happened at Desiring God largely unintentionally for me. And I'm kind of glad that it did, because if you write to be published, it's a tricky thing. Okay, it's like being a worship leader, right? I was a worship leader for a long time, and you can get up and lead the songs and do this, and not your own heart really isn't all that engaged, but you know how to do the thing, right? Anytime you do things for public consumption, it's just kind of dangerous. You can just write because you can, and you just, and then people say, oh, that was so helpful. And I'll tell you, that's where a lot of guys, a lot of pastors go off the rails. They learn how to preach. God uses them. Their own private lives might be a mess, but in the pulpit they know how to hold it together. They know how to put a message together. They know how to, they can do the, and then all of a sudden, and then people are actually being changed because God is willing to use it. God's willing to use it and bless it, but not for His sake, but for the people's sake. And then it comes out later that this guy is having an affair or some other thing is going on, and you're like, what in the world happened? So you can write like that too. So once it becomes like you're writing for the public, it's a whole different kind of temptation. You need to. It requires even greater accountability before God, that you aren't just trying to write for other people to get praise or whatever else. But writing itself has great benefit in clarifying what it is that you're thinking and what it is that you mean.